Hello everyone, I'm Elder Thurgood, and today we'll be taking a look at the story of Elijah. Elijah was a prophet in Israel at the time Ahab was king. Ahab had a wife named Jezebel from an idolatrous foreign nation. When Jezebel came to Israel, she brought with her Baal, the idol god of her country. She spread the worship of Baal all throughout Israel, and the entire nation descended into sin and idolatry. For this, Elijah preached to King Ahab and declared that a drought would cover the land of Israel, that there would be famine and thirst for years. Elijah's word was true, and no rain fell on Israel for many years. Jezebel sent out assassins and hunters to try and slay Elijah, but he continually evaded their attacks. All the prophets of God were then hunted down and killed under Jezebel's orders. The worship of Baal continued. Eventually, the Lord called Elijah to put a stop to this idolatry once and for all. Elijah came to King Ahab and told him that they would see who really was God in Israel, Baal or Jehovah. Elijah called all the prophets of Baal under Jezebel's command, and they met on a mountain. They each built altars to their gods, and Elijah declared the battle that they would undertake. Each group would build an altar to their god and sacrifice a bull there. They would put wood on the stones and the bull on top, but they would not light the fire under the wood for the sacrifice. The god themselves had to call down fire for the sacrifice. Whichever god answered by fire, that was the God of Israel. The priests of Baal did exactly as Elijah commanded. They built their altar, covered it in wood, put the bullock on top, and cried unto their God that the bullock would be lit aflame. But they received no answer. Elijah toyed with them for a moment, saying, "Maybe your God is sleeping. Pray louder. You need to wake him up so he can light your fire." The prophets of Baal began shouting cries to their idol god, but with no answer. Their god was nothing but a make of wood. It had no power to light or stop fire. Elijah then dug a pit around his own altar and commanded that 12 buckets of water be dumped on top of the sacrifice. Bear in mind, this was during a serious drought. That water was very expensive and could have saved many lives if the drought were to continue. Then Elijah called upon his own God, the God of Israel, and not only was his prayer answered by fire, but fire so intense fell from the heaven as to dry up all the water in the trench and completely incinerate the altar itself. Everyone knew who was God in Israel, and the priests and prophets of Baal were put to death. Elijah came to Ahab and showed him, "You now know who is God in Israel. Follow him." Ahab went back to his idolatrous ways, under the twisting of his arm by his wife Jezebel. But Israel at large returned to the worship of the one true God, and rain returned to the land.